Welcome! Hello, everyone. Hello, streaming audience. I'll take a clap. My name is Bovan Armstrong. I'm the community educator and engaging men and boys advocate at the Center for Hope and Healing. Ew. This event is part of our larger March Men's Speaker Series that we've been hosting this month. On the 10th, we had FD Signifier and Tony Porter speak via Zoom. On the 17th, we had a special Brotherhood of Strength meeting, which meets every Thursday, including next Thursday and the Thursdays after that. And then finally, for our last part of our event, we're having this lovely panel discussion with our wonderful guests. Yeah! So, our wonderful guests are Venerable Lem Mee, Anthony Febo, Pastor Dwayne Wheeler, and Vlad Saldana. So, to open up, to get us comfortable with speaking with the lovely audience here and the lovely audience at home, we're going to have a quick little check-in, something that we do at my job all the time, and something we're going to do here. So for the check-in, we're going to see our name, our pronouns, how we're feeling today, and then for our question to start us off, I'm going to ask what your favorite toy was when you were growing up. I'll start just to mimic it all. So my name is Bo. I use he, him pronouns. I am feeling so great today. I am very excited for this panel. And my favorite toy, okay, so it's really weird. At McDonald's, you could get a Dragon Ball Z bronze toy. It wasn't actually bronze, it was plastic, but it looked weird. It was Goku, though, the strongest of the Saiyans. It could only move, its arms were outstretched like this, but it only moved at the hips. So he was just doing left crosses and right crosses. Could not uppercut for his life, but boy, was that my favorite toy to take on any of my others. And I will pass it on to my lovely panel guests. So if any would like to go next, more than welcome to.
My name is Febo. I use he, him pronouns. I am feeling very well adjusted. Just came back from the chiropractor. Shout out to self-care. Shout out to fixing the spine. In terms of toys, I was a martial artist when I was younger and really loved Ninja Turtles, all things Ninja Turtles, specifically Donatello. So shout out to any stick that served as a bow staff and any piece of cloth that had 2 holes in it for me to put around my eyes. So that whole area was my main jam.
Hi, my name is Pastor Dwayne Wheeler, and I'm he, him, and today is just a wonderful day. Any day that you're above ground and you can look into the obituary and you don't see your name, that's a good day. My favorite toy, I'm a little older than the rest of the panel here. My favorite toy growing up was a blow-up Boza. And I'm going to tell you why. I was the only child. I could play with that by myself. I did not need to have any friends over to play or mess with my toys. So blow-up Bozo was my favorite toy growing up.
That was my nickname in middle school, too.
My name is Vladimir. I go by he, him. I am feeling hopeful. I've been feeling that for a couple of days. Hopefully it sticks. That feeling of hopeful overall. What was to be honest, I don't think I remember like a toy specific, but my favorite thing to play was my bike. So I guess that's my bike. I got into a lot of accidents with that bike. Some that I still scar, like I have scars all over my legs. And one of the worst experience, but also it was a very fun day on my bike, but it ended up being one of my worst experiences as a kid. Was me riding my bike without a pedal. So you know how sometimes like your plastic pedal will break. That did not stop me from using the bike. So I was racing one of my buddy. I was actually winning the race.
Of course.
Winning the race, and I fell, and the bike pedal stuck to my actual like leg. It stuck. It was a horrific experience. But to this day, we argue. I won the race. He said he did. There's no way. There's no way. Like, technicality, I lost.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Lem Mee, and I feel very great to be here with our friend. I think that I do not have any toy that when we were young.
Well, so the event today is spirituality and masculinity. So to start it off, ask the question that we have to ask. What does spirituality mean to you? And I'll pass it on to my lovely panelists.
Well, might as well jump right on it. What does spirituality mean to me? First, we need to deal with what the definition of spirituality is. And with dealing with the definition of spirituality, we need to go to the root. I'm not that smart. I've been to education. I've been to English class a few times. And I learned that you need to go to the root of the word to get the true meaning. So when you look at the root word spirit, next question would come to mind is what is contained in a man's spirit? And when you ask that question, what is contained in a man's spirit, I come up with three things. In a man's spirit is contained their mind, their emotions, and their will. And so that's how I define what spirituality means to me. My mind, what I think about, my emotions, how I feel about things, and my will, the intestinal fortitude to do what we are called to do. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think about spirituality and I think about what does it mean to be spiritual. And I think a lot about the interconnectedness between not just myself and my other human beings, but also myself into just like everything else that's around, and allowing there to be a connection, even if what is in front of me is manufactured and it's man-made. Someone needed to make that. And so with that creation in mind, for me, spirituality is the honoring of the connection that exists between myself and everything else that's around me.
Let me won't go. I will jump in with. I was actually jogging down some thoughts around the question because never been asked to define it, but I don't think that anyone of us or anyone watching or at home has the right answer to what spirituality really is or means to. I think it's individually we can all have our own concept. But for me, so the question is basically what it means to me, and I think it's something along the line with accepting the things that you cannot change, understanding that there is that the world's bigger than your needs or even your worries. And I know sometimes it may seem like when we have a problem that it's all about us. And I think that once you step out of that self-centeredness, I think you find that something what Febo said, which I agree. It's like we're all interconnected, and that spirituality. I think it's being mindful that there's a bigger world. So I think it's part of how I define it and how I live my spiritual life. And so,
For me, spirituality means turn what we have into enough. Very simple, like the Buddha, the Lord Buddha, he lived in the luxury home, but he did not satisfy, and then he left that home to live in jungle. You see the Jesus spent, in the Matthew 4:1-4, he spent 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. He was hungry. The tempters say to him that if you are the son of the God, this stone become the loaf of the bread. Jesus replied, man shall not live with the bread only, but by every word that come out from the mouth of God. You see, if we are spiritually the holy man, a monk, we should not live by the food, the physical food only, but spiritual, but the food from the mind. You see, the body for the food we have today, after 3 hours, we feel more. But for the mental food, the spiritual food for the mind, the food from the purified, purely from the mouth of the God, from the Jesus, the teaching, that is the magic, that is the blessing, that is the powerful. You see, it's very, very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate that. I appreciate your true and your honest answers. We got a lot of different answers. We heard things about your mind, emotion, and will being aspects of your spirituality. You know, we hear about things of how to live your life and the life of others who are spiritual. We also talked earlier about our favorite toys as a child. I want to know how you got here today. How I got into contact with you. You're sitting at this desk. You're talking with these lovely people here and at our stream. What was your journey here? What was your journey from you playing with that toy or no toy to getting to here today? What was your spiritual journey? I'd love to know.
Right. I'll stop. Give everybody else a little time to think about that. My spiritual journey started at home. My spiritual journey started as a child. My spiritual journey was guided by my father and my mother. And let me just take a personal moment here. And can I say hello to my wife? I don't want to get in trouble. I have to go home. Hello, sweetheart. Stacy Vaughn Wheeler, we love you so much. All right, now I'm sorry that I had to digress for a moment. Now let's get back to the business at hand. It started out at home with my mother and my father. My father was a pastor, and he was also a police officer. My mother was a minister and a probation officer. And then they had me. And I tried to go the other way, but the Bible tells us that we should train up our children in the way that they should go, and that when they get old, they won't depart from it. I thank God that did I follow all of the lessons and the strong moral compass that they had? No, I did not follow it all the time. But one day I had to come to myself. And when I came to myself, those lessons that I learned as a child brought me back to the center of where I needed to be. So I'm here today because I had a praying mother, and I had a praying father, and I had hands-on individuals in my life. It took a village to get me where I'm.
I think I want to jump in because you touched on, like, you know, the importance of spiritual journey being guided by folks, whether parents, loved ones, families, and friends. I think to answer your question, I was reflecting on that boy in Dominican Republic at 7 years old when this incident happened, and how I ended up today sitting on a table with this lovely panel and these lovely people here. Yeah, there is a journey, right, that intersects in so many different ways, from immigration to just societal problems. But the spiritual piece, I've never actually thought about it, and the connectedness, which is what we were saying earlier. I think it's very real. But to like reflect on what has that mean to me, I think it continues to evolve, mainly through seeking knowledge, wisdom. I think learning from learning that my needs, again, it goes back to like what are my needs and then what is the best for overall humanity and society. Dropping my ego, that's been a big learning, over my spirituality, maturity, and I think, it's hit me when you think about what does all that means, and I think it's just continuing to again understand that we're an organism that continues to evolve, both physically, because our body changes, mentally, and that's the growth, in the spirit of how you feel about certain fellow humans.
My spiritual journey in Cambodia is, you see, in the 1980s, sorry, they have a civil war, so my parents think that it is very dangerous for me. So he sent me to live in the temple, and then in 1991 become a monk, a Buddhist monk, and we continue to study Buddhist text, just study about the just philosophy, and we got a scholarship as a Buddhist, a master of Buddhist philosophy in Delhi University, and we met our friend over there, and he encouraged me to practice, to join the meditation 10-day course, and that is the deeper spiritually in my life.
Shout out to seasons, to circles, to things ending and beginning and ending and beginning again, and recognizing that those ups and downs are part of the journey. I am here today, specifically in this panel, because my good friend Masada Jones asked for me to be here. And one of the reasons that it even makes sense for me to be here to begin with is because my true spiritual journey started also with Masada in high school, when I saw her perform a poem, and I decided that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I'm very thankful and blessed that I have been able to grow through spoken word poetry and through art. And as much as I have connected with different forms of religion, of spirituality, of connecting to things that are larger than myself, and ethereal, and nature, and all of those things, poetry has definitely been that changing and pushing forth for me. And so I think about my personal journey, and I think a lot about unlearning. I think a lot of unlearning had to happen in my spiritual journey. I had to recognize that the things that I was taught weren't one, the only way that could be done, and two, doesn't mean that just because I was taught something doesn't mean it was right. And so I had to do a lot of unlearning of the things that were brought up to me, did a lot of questioning, did a lot of listening to other people, a lot of shutting up and listening to the people that I've hurt and believing them. And through that, I realized that the version of myself that existed, that caused that pain, is not a version of myself that I want to remain. So I had to do that moving. And so the more and more I listen and believe the people around me that I trust and care for, the more and more I find myself growing.
Can I take it back?
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's just one question, one answer.
All right, we can keep on talking all we
All
want.
right, no, because I actually think, again, that whole theory of deconstructing your own belief system and questioning, it's like what I was saying, it's what continues to evolve in my spirit journey, right? Like, that's constantly happening. So I just wanted to echo, because that's true. It's something very much heartfelt. Also felt the comment about Masada, because it's true.
Good shout out for Masada.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm here for the same reason. Not that I got into poetry. I didn't follow path, but I remember. But my first time actually being moved by spoken word live, not through a TV lens, was because I've heard Masada. We invited her to. I don't know if she remembers this. There was a dinner we held to honor women on campus at UMass Lowell. And Masada did a poem that till this day, I think everyone that was in the room just felt it in their soul. I think she might remember, but it was a moving, it was a very moving day for everyone in the audience.
He touched on, my brother touched on something here when he was speaking, when he said that he had to learn some things and unlearn some things. And as you grow and as we all evolve, yes, there are some lessons that we have learned and some things that people have taught us along the way that weren't the best way. And when you know better, you do better. And so I'm thankful that he shared that. That yes, sometimes if we're on our spiritual journeys, there are some things that we have learned that people have taught us that were self-serving for themselves. And those things we have to unlearn, because the Bible tells us to study to show thyself approved, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly, that's the key word, rightly dividing the word of truth. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We heard a lot. We heard a lot of lessons, the journey. We talked about going into spirituality for safety. We talked about family. We talked about friends. Masada, hello. We talked about learning and unlearning. A lot of different journeys, similar paths, different paths. We all got here today. So why did I bring you here? I brought you here today because one thing we all have in common, we're all men. We all walk through our journeys and through our paths as men. We get affected by the other people. We affect other people. We have a lovely woman, Masada, who brought many of you here today. I want to ask you, how does your masculinity, how does your manhood, how does being a man in our society affect your spirituality, affect that journey that you were on and are still on today? I'll pass that on to you.
How does my masculinity affect my relationship with my spirituality? Is that where we're going?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, as I had forestated, it's all about the appetite and what people feed you. My parents fed me a spiritual walk, and my parents also fed me how to be a man. My father taught me how to be a man, and my mother taught me how to be a gentleman. I learned how to open up doors for young ladies at an early age. I learned by my father, by the age of 12 years old, I knew how to change a tire because he didn't want me to be on the side of the road with his wife and not be able to get her off the road. So all of this is tied in together. And I think that it is very important that in the home, because it should start in the home, that we teach our children, teach our children's children, teach your neighbor, teach a friend, share your experiences. And if you see somebody going the wrong way, just you can't tell people what to do, but you can just share your experiences. Don't do as I do, because we had a society like that. People tell, don't do as we don't do this, don't do that. My message is don't do as I did, because I did some things, but God was able to keep us, to bring us to this point, so that we can speak to this generation that has fallen away. Well, I won't say that they're falling away. Can I tell you the biggest spiritual group right now is the group of none. N-O-N-E. People that are going to nobody's church. People that aren't checking into their spiritual nature. That's the biggest spiritual group right now. And we that know better, we need to help our society to be better. Thank you. song. Y'all know what that is.
Yeah, no. I think about my masculinity and the journey that it had, and the way that it's influenced my spiritual journey, and I find myself thinking for for the last couple of years, I've had a practice of whenever I am walking somewhere and I know that it's a distance, whether it's to work, or grocery store, it doesn't matter. If I'm walking somewhere, I'm gonna use that time of transition as a moment to check in with myself. And so I've been throwing on some headphones, pressing my voice recorder memo on, and just talking to myself. So shout out to talking to yourself, you know what I mean? Like, it's a beautiful thing. Also, when you're on the street and you have a headphone on, no one thinks you're talking to yourself. They just think you're talking to someone else, you know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter.
Just
Anyway.
don't argue, brother. Just don't argue.
Oh, I've walked up to a group of people waiting at a stoplight and be like, I know, I can't believe they did that, right? That's wild. That's wild. And wait for them to leave and continue to talk. Anyways, every once in a while, I go back and listen to them, because it's one thing to record it, it's another thing to then use it as a moment of documentation to then reflect on at a later point. And one of these days, I was talking about power and what does it mean to be powerful? What is the power that I have? What are the superpowers that I have? And I realized that just being born a man gave me a lot of power. Being born a man, being born the oldest male in a Latino household gave me a lot of power. My grandmother treats me differently than she treats my three older my three other female cousins. And I don't think I ever had to recognize that or deal with that, because it was a privilege that I had. I didn't have to think about it. That's what privilege is. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. And it wasn't until I started to think about that and question that and take a look at the way that my masculinity had affected the people that I cared about in my life, or at least the way that I was conducting myself as a man, caused pain, or caused a lot of... I used to ask this question to my friends. I'm like, would you date yourself if you could? And my answer to myself was always no. I wouldn't date myself. And so I'm like, wait, if I wouldn't date myself, why do I expect anybody else to want to be with me, right? And so shout out to my wife, Carly Bristol Febo. And she's not in the building right now, but she's always in the building, you know what I mean? And she and so in that reflection, in that recognizing, I also realized that in order for me to change, that had to like start at the foundation, start at the core, start at the root. And the root of a lot of who it is that I am, and a lot of where I come from, is my spirituality, is the way that I interact with things that are larger to myself, is the way that I interact with the natural world, with the physical world, with the metaphysical world. And I didn't like the way any of that looked. And so I love the idea of growth. I love the idea of change, and I decided to stop making it an idea and turn it into like actual reality, and started doing some reading, started doing some believing, some listening to stories that weren't mine, intentionally surrounding myself with the history and the stories of others. And through that, my own spirituality grew. Even though I was just listening to other people talk, the way that I viewed the world changed drastically. My relationship, not just with myself, but with those around me, also changed, because I realized that I wanted there to be... I thought about what I wanted to leave behind, and I didn't like what I was leaving behind up until that point. So decided to make the shift, make the pivot, so that what I would be leaving behind felt more aligned with who it is that I wanted to be and who it is that I saw myself as.
My relationship with the spirituality that related with the masculinity is we learn as a man, we learn to from the Buddhism, we learn to accept the things as they really are. Mm-hmm. Not pushing, but learn to accept it as they really are. We are okay with bodies. For example, if we feel desire or want something or desire to do something, we have to accept it. We learn to accept it. is smile with that, enjoy with that. We cannot, you see, whatever we receive with that, it will persist. It is fighting back. So as spirituality, we learn to control by desire by learning accept it as they are really are. Smile with that, and with that experience, and then when we practice by experience with the thing as they really are, everything is dissolved. Dissolve, it healing, it eliminates itself. It appears itself. When we smile with that, accept it as they really are, and everything is healing, repairing itself, and so our mind is, you see, become calm and peaceful. Thank you.
Just before you jump in really quickly, I just want to bounce off what you were saying, this idea of acceptance. I definitely think that at least the masculinity that I grew up with was a masculinity that was taught, and it was something that I adapted, and I was asked to look at things as masculine and feminine and right or wrong, or guys do this and guys don't do this. And it was the concept and the idea of accepting that allowed me to see past that. Like I remember the first time I wore pink, and I just felt it. I felt the shift in my body of like, wait, but I'm not supposed to wear this. But at the same time, it's literally just a color. It's literally just a color. And we decided that pink should go with girls, although historically pink did start with men and then eventually it was changed. But that doesn't matter. It's this idea of accepting the fact that it's a piece of clothing versus it being a guy or a girl thing just because of the color. And so that acceptance, adapting acceptance, also allowed me to deconstruct what I thought masculinity should be and accepting it for what it is that it lived in my own body.
I see this connection between my specific spirituality with my masculinity. It's rooted in the thing you mentioned earlier, Pastor Wheeler, my upbringing. I think culture cannot be taken out of the context. I grew up in Febo
all day, baby.
I know that. I grew up also in a Hispanic household, right?
Right.
I grew up in a very Hispanic household. Come from an island, Dominican Republic, that is some could say machista, but that's real, right? The masculinity culture, depending on where you grow up in the part of the world or the country you come from, you cannot erase that. You cannot also erase your parent. I grew up with my father and my mother, and there was clear expectation as a man on what a man should do or be. Not necessarily the physical or the wearing pink or not. Had nothing to do with that. With my father, it was about the sacrifice that the man must make.
Come on.
The love that the man must have for his children, his women, his family. And it was about that giving, right? So it goes back to spirituality. I defined it earlier. To me, it was about others. It was about the bigger picture. So when it comes to what my masculinity, I guess, characteristics are, is the sacrifice, the love, the intention for the others, and in my case, my family, my loved one, and my strong significant other. So I think that is like, we can get into the whole colors or how you're supposed to act and what is expectation as a man. But I think those are just distraction to get us away from what I feel that for me that man to be is. Mm-hmm. And it's all about traits and characteristics that are beyond the physical.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Both of these gentlemen are really shooting some shots on tonight. And I thank God for the both of them, and I'm glad that I'm on either side of them, because as I'm listening to both of these gentlemen, we talk about masculinity, And masculinity, and it seems like with both of these gentlemen and myself, that our masculinity and our spirituality walk hand in hand. And see, what is masculinity? Quality or the nature of a man. And in spirituality, what's also hidden in spirituality? Integrity. Who you are when nobody is around. And so both of these things, the quality of who you are, and cultures, I love different cultures. Hispanic cultures, they give the man, a lot of cultures, they give the man, the top role, whether they deserve it or not. Can I say that without getting any hate mail? Whether they deserve it or not. And so we need to make sure that with our children, that we feed the whole man. We feed the spiritual side of the man. We feed the masculine side of the man. I'll tell you this, I almost wore my pink suit tonight because I have one. Because, the way society describes masculinity isn't always correct. I grew up in school. I sang in the Glee Club. I played basketball. I played football, and I sang in the Glee Club. You know why I sang in the Glee Club? There's a lot of girls in the Glee Club. Hello? There was a method to my madness. Okay? And again, that was, how on the inside of me, that was, there was no, there was a man or a woman can do anything that they can put their mind to do. You understand? Look at where we are now. We have our first woman vice president. We had our first black president, which they thought was never going to happen. So we need to be able to put in our young people and let them know that they should have qualities that define who they are. And can I tell you, spirit's very important. If you ever go to the liquor store, it says it right on the sign. Wine and spirits. Y'all, I come from a talk back church, so y'all can talk back. Okay? And oftentimes some of the most terrible situations that have occurred in our lives was because of the excess of alcohol, and they got a hold of the wrong spirit. And I'm gonna leave that alone.
I guess I just want to again piggyback on something you said, Pastor Wheeler, in terms of giving the role in the Hispanic household. I want to politely disagree with you.
Okay.
I think that if we are to look at family structures and male roles in specifically the context of America and this country, I think the man of color, Hispanic, Black, whatever but men of color in general, the idea has been, or in my perception, has been to attack the headship that's the male, and especially the male of color in this country, in all sorts of ways. We can look at the mass incarceration. We can look at many different metrics that we want to go and study. But the reason why I disagree, I think, is culturally the reason why male in maybe in a Hispanic household assume that role is because the families in general have been attacked as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And again, back to about what I was taught, it's the protection, the giving of self for the better of that. And if you start to notice these things and see these things, then you would want to fight them.
Absolutely. So let me say this. That I'm not talking about just I'm talking about cultures in general. Historically, we go back to slavery, where they emasculated the black man for over 300 years. And so, again, it is very important as a man and as a masculine figure to be a protector and to be a provider and to take care of the family. Take care of the family. You understand? And reason why I said sometimes it has been given to men that deserved it or not, because if we tell the truth, there have been men that have been placed in positions of influence and authority and have abused their power. Okay, so that's why I was speaking to that note, not to take anything away from men or male figures, but I wanted to say that sometimes, you know, that we need to let the cat out the bag, and sometimes we need to go chase some things.
But then it goes back to the teachings, right?
Absolutely.
The characteristic that you're teaching in masculinity, not the abusive part. I mean, I'm not gonna say it doesn't get exploited. It does. I mean,
absolutely.
you cannot be naive and say it doesn't. But I think the question was about me, right, and how I was taught. But I think we out to do better, right?
Sure.
And I'm not gonna disagree with you on that. I think it can definitely be exploited.
Absolutely. You know, we need to be examples.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need to be the light. I'm sorry. It's not Sunday. I apologize.
Sorry, I think both of you. I think he has another question. I apologize.
Sorry, you got to wait
When you feel it, you feel it. I understand.
I love the conversation we're having. I'm loving that it's not exactly an agreement all the time. These conversations that we're having right now reminds me a lot of the conversations we have at Brotherhood of Strength.
Mm.
It's the meeting, the group that I run every third Thursday of the month. We have these conversations. We talk about spirituality. We talk about masculinity. We talk about race. That was brought up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about family. We talk about our roles in society. I welcome you guys to come. I would love to have you there more. We are unfortunately going to have to take a short intermission in a couple minutes. Before we do that, I do want to have our audience know that if they would like to, they have a piece of paper with a pen on their table that they can write down a short little question on. After we get back from the intermission, we're going to have a little Q&A, and I do have one more topic that I do want to jump on before we close out this evening. So again, I thank you. Febo or Venerable Lem Mee, if you have a final piece that you want to do before we go into intermission, you're more than welcome to. Okay. Yeah. And with that, we're going to go to intermission. So thank you. 5 minutes. welcome back. Welcome back. So, we're moving on to our Q&A portion of the event. After this Q&A portion of the event, we will unfortunately be finishing our conversation and discussion. Hopefully, we will continue on these conversations and discussions. But we have a couple questions from our lovely audience, as well as our lovely audience at home. The first question that I'm going to ask, kind of a topic that I was going to talk about already, was spiritual health. What does spiritual health mean to you? The ideas of how do you maintain spiritual health? And then in moments of crisis, how do you maintain that spiritual health? So I'll open that up to the floor.
Well, let's start here. How do we maintain my spiritual health? Is by fellowshipping and being around like-minded individuals that believe have the same belief system, the same belief nucleus, and I going to church. I tell people going to church is like going to the gas station. If you have a car, and I know nobody wants to go to the gas station right about now. But going to church is like having a car and not going to the gas station. You need to fill up on what you believe. You need to get around like-minded people, whatever your belief system is. If you're Buddhist or if you're Muslim, and whatever you are, your spiritual health is revolved around, my spiritual health is revolved around connectedness, if that makes any sense to anybody. Because, especially with the pandemic has isolated many of us. The introverts, they just love this. I don't have to talk to nobody. I don't have to see anybody. But we were made to have relationships. That's how God made us. When he made Adam, what'd he do? He looked at Adam and said, it ain't good for this man right here to be alone. So let me make a helpmate for him. So we were made to have relationships, and you have to water your grass. That makes sense.
I want to jump in. I think so. This all gets, rooted back to our own definition of spirituality.
Sure.
So how I feed my spirituality health, I think it exhibits physically, because when I run, when I work out, when I bike and exercise, I feel that is me feeding my spirituality, right? In a sense, feeding my spiritual health, because it keeps me sane. I enjoy it. I enjoy it emotionally, but I also enjoy it spiritually. Like it makes me feel different. It makes me feel good. Some of the best moments, right, in terms of how my spirit is uplifted when I'm feeling down, is my loved ones, laughing, joy with my loved ones. That is how I feel that it feeds that health. Like when your battery's drained, right, and your phone is low, you plug it in to charge it. I charge through both the physical, but also the moments of fellowship. People that know, that love me, and want to be around me, and I want to be around them. Those are my, I guess, practice. How I feed that help for my spirituality. But also on a solo basis, is seeking knowledge, continuing to question and continuing to seek wisdom, because that is the only way that we can continue to do that evolving loop that we were talking about earlier.
To maintain the spiritual health is to practice doing ourselves. We have to, for me, I practice by sitting meditation 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. To practice, it means to purify the mind, to purify the heart, to learn how to shut down the six sense door: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. You see, at the beginning, Adam and Eve meeting with each other, God say that don't eat the fruit. What does it mean? The fruit? Fruit is not a fruit in the like apple. No, it is a fruit from impurity that go into the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Especially the ear. Whatever we hear is good. We're happy, but it's not good. We start to be anger and negativity in come to the mind. That is the fruit. But you see, Adam eat the fruit, but we call us Satan that eat. What is Satan? Satan is the devil. That come to your mind. That's why we have to purify. We have to practice every day, practice meditation. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely like hearing what y'all are saying. Makes me think a lot about practice, but also like training, right? Like the way that we are able to maintain our spiritual practice in a moment of crisis is to practice it when we are not in crisis.
Come on now.
Right? Is to think about the same way that the reason Steph Curry doesn't miss when he shoots is because he practices a lot. You know what I mean? Just trainings to get it in the body, for that muscle memory, for that when presented in that moment, your body already has the reaction built in within it because you have dedicated time to that practice of breathing, of calm, of acceptance, of like recognizing that what is happening here, that there is something beyond it, that we don't necessarily need to take it personally. But the way that I practice, the way that I maintain a practice of my spiritual health is I try to immerse myself in nature at least once a week at the very least, and allow myself to be there. Whether I'm walking, whether I'm writing, it's recognizing that as much as I think that as much space as I do take up, not just in my home, but on stage or in front of a classroom or whatever it is, I always feel humbled when I'm surrounded by that which is bigger than me, which is, you know, the nature, the trees, the malleable ground, how it hardens and softs depending on the weather, and how I also feel like I harden and soft based off of the weather. But if I'm able to keep a practice of intentional breath, of choosing specific moments in my day, in my routine of throughout my day, to make a habit out of breathing. Whenever it is that I feed my daughter, I intentionally take 3 breaths as she's drinking. I have a new baby at home. She's 18 months, and so whenever it is that she is eating, or drinking, that is a moment for me to practice stillness. Whenever I'm changing her and she's crying, instead of saying anything, I just intentionally, audibly, out loud start breathing so that she can hear that there is another option to the way that she's interacting with herself, or the way that she's dealing with whatever it is that she's dealing. Yes, you can scream and you can yell and you can move, but you can also breathe, and that is available to us. And the more that we can tap into that and make an intentional practice out of it, the more I know that I'm able to maintain that strength in that moment of crisis.
Febo's gonna make my Sunday message, y'all, because he said something that was very, very important and imperative if we're gonna have a successful life. He said that you practice when you're not going through a storm. So when you're going through a storm,
You know what to do.
you know how to handle yourself.
Yeah.
And when he was talking about Steph Curry and any basketball player on a high level, when they're practicing, they'll have somebody on their left side, they'll have somebody on their right side, clapping, making a whole lot of noise to do anything that they can to distract them from their focus. So those people that live on a high level, you're going to go through some storms, because the Bible says man born of a woman has but a few days, and those days are full of trouble. All right? So that lets us know that in our life, we're going to have some trouble. So if you practice when you're not going through a crisis, so when you're going through the crisis, you can continue the course.
I guess I wanna talk. You can't practice crisis.
You can't practice
No,
crisis, but what
you
you
can
can
practice
practice
principle.
is
Thank you. That's
You practice principle.
That was gonna be my next. But go ahead.
whenever it is that I'm working, I do a lot of coaching, a lot of poetry coaching. So there's a lot of performance, a lot of specifically with young folks, and some of them maybe don't have any type of experience of performing. Never mind performing work that they created about their own personal lives. And before I ever set them on stage, I let them know I cannot mimic nerves, but I can mimic distraction. So you're gonna perform, and everyone is gonna be yelling in front of you. And if you can stay focused in that moment and stay connected to the breath, stay connected to the word in the moment of performance, which we are going to also put in parentheses crisis, right? In the moment that you need to show up, you at least have in your body that practiced feeling of distraction or storm or something going on, and being able to breathe and move through that. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, because you're not gonna put yourself in a situation of being like, all right, cool, you know, I did 2 classes of martial arts, and so now like go let attack me. You know what I mean? Like,
I guess what I wanted to touch upon.
Yeah.
I think when you guys were talking, it's I learned this concept recently through, again, reading, seeking knowledge and wisdom. It's the practice of mental immunity. It's a concept. It's real. It's something that is being taught by religious leaders. I think when we think of that, you take vitamin C, all type of vitamins, to protect or build an immunity in your body for sickness. The same thing with what you were talking earlier about how do you practice mindfulness, how do you practice or how do you feed certain principles so your mental immunity can build up for those moments of crisis or trial and tribulation in your life, which are going to come, which are going, we get tested every day. So I think that's how I want to sum it up. But it was just a comment earlier I wanted to make about, like, you can't practice, like, you don't want to put yourself in
But the thing is, right, is that like crisis can mean so many different things for so many different people. You know, depending on the person's level of anxiety, literally calling to make a doctor's appointment could be a moment of crisis. You know what I mean? And so like it really is taking that moment to check in, identify within yourself what your own level of comfort is, understanding what that circle of comfort is, and what does it look like for you to step just one step outside of it. I'm not asking you to create a whole new circle, but just like what is that moment of stepping out of that comfort, or practicing to be able to do the thing that might feel anxiety provoking or might be representative of that crisis. How can you prepare ahead of time?
Venerable.
Preemptive, you know.
Would you have more to say about crisis?
Yeah. I love the Jesus say in Luke.
Come on, talk about Luke now.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, 23, as I said before.
Yeah.
You see, say that when a group of men that torture him, crucify him,
Yeah.
and Jesus said, the Father forgive them for they know not what they do. It means that the group of men that torture him is acting blindly. Yeah, blindly. That's why we have talking about crisis. The crisis is not our crisis we call of the economic or political. It is a consciousness. The mind. Is you practice purer and purer, we have only love, universal love. It doesn't matter Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism. No. You are the you in the universe. If we purify our mind, we will see that everyone in the world is our brother and sister. Why we fighting? Because blind, it's just like labeling ourselves. It's just like put a curtain in front of our eye. That's why Jesus, you see, his heart is love and pure, only love, only forgive. You see, we call that group of men acting blindly. They do not know what he's doing. Jesus know, only love. He saw a loving compassion to that man. That's why if everybody in our society come to church, come to Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever practice doing. If you believe in Buddhism, act like Buddha. If you believe in Christianity, act like Jesus Christ. Act like, doing like Jesus Christ. That is the point that we will going to end the crisis in the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
He said something, and he just touched a nerve. Oh, he said, act something, do something, and see. Let me just use this quick analogy. My car that I drive has a manual, okay? And if you get in a crisis and something is going on with your car, I know we live in a YouTube society. We think that we can learn how to do everything on YouTube.
It's worked out so far.
It works sometimes. I know, all right, but not all the time, all right? But if you get into a situation, if you're about to run out of gas, you can look at that manual, and that manual will tell you, even if you're sitting on E, you still got a few miles that you can go. But you're not going to know that unless you read the manual. Well, I got my manual. All right.
So we talk about crises. We talk about unexpected storms or running on E, even though you got the meter there. We have a question from the audience about storms, maybe. About teenagers. How about we say that? I, being a former teenager with my mother here and my father on the stream, hello Dad, also a pastor, children, they can be a bit of a storm. We have a question from the audience, specifically from a 30-year-old black male, college student who's engaged, is in the LGBT community, is a Buddhist, and has a newly adopted teenage nephew. They just want some advice. This is something new, something different for them. They're curious what your advice is in terms of spirituality now that they have this new child, and just in general.
Well, one of the things that I walked away with in my years of youth work, of working with teenagers, is that teenagers will know a lot more than we give them credit for, and that just posing the question, posing the topic, and allowing them to speak first. Like, what do you have to say about this topic? When I say this, when I say spirituality, when I say this, what are some of the things that come to mind? And start with that, because there's often this idea that young people are empty vessels and that the adults with all of their wisdom and knowledge need to pour themselves into it. And if anyone thinks back to when it is that they were, that's just not the case. We know a lot more. Folks know a lot more than sometimes they're given the credit for. Whether it's right or wrong, that's not what we're talking about. But there's already a foundation there. So start with asking the young person, what are your thoughts on this? When I say this, what are some of the things that come to mind? And based off what it is that person is saying, that our guest or anyone that is asking the question to identify, reflect on themselves. Well, what is my relationship with spirituality? Do I have a relationship with spirituality where I feel like I can then talk to someone else about their relationship with spirituality? Because it's very easy to talk to someone about something else that they should be doing when we're not doing it ourselves first. So wanting to first check in with yourself. Where are you at? Where's your journey? Check in with the other person. Where are you at in your journey? And then now let's connect. Now let's take the things that you're thinking about and that you're talking about. This is another perspective. Let's take a look at both of our perspectives and how can it build based off of some of the values that we want to make sure that you walk away with, that we're trying to build.
So I want to chime in because I think that there's a distinct difference, and I want to start actually with clearly defining that spirituality has nothing to do with your sexual orientation, and that's just my perspective. Mm-hmm. Some other people can disagree. So to this new father, it's also very different between I'm about to have my first junior coming up very soon, very soon, mm-hmm. and my spirituality, it's connected to my masculinity, of course, but again, what I'm going to the foundation I'm going to pour to that child it's going to come from what I was taught and what I've learned and what I continue to evolve. And then the characteristic that I was talking earlier is what has no sexual orientation. It does not apply to women or men. It applies to human beings. Love, respect, love for the humanity. I think that has nothing to do with your sexual orientation. In this case, it's a different story because he is a older teenager. So what Febo was saying earlier, they'll come with their own foundation, as opposed to, I do believe that when a child is born a blank. It's a blank. I think it's definitely a blank book. And the parents, the elders in that child's life will fill those primary years. I'm not saying that the rest of the book will be written, because they would start to choose and pull and from their own experiences, but I think the first few chapters of that child's life is book. So since he is adopting a 17-year-old, that's a whole different dynamic. And yeah, but he can pour from his experience or how he identifies to pour it into the cup that teenager became.
Thank you.
Can
Pastor
I-
Dwayne Wheeler,
Yes, sir.
you have, as you have told me,
Uh-huh.
8 children.
Absolutely. And so you want
So I want from you,
okay.
specifically, as someone who has had 8 children, someone who's a pastor, as someone who has gone through having 8 kids, be grown now,
Thank you, Jesus.
what's one piece of advice you would say to a new father or to a new parent?
To a new, well, can we talk to the question to the gentleman, and I'm going to put it all together.
We do have 5 minutes left in the stream.
Okay, all right. So I'll use 2 church minutes. All right, all right. So answering the question to the father that's part of the LGBT community. A father is a father. It does not, your sexuality does not define you as a father. A father, if your father needs to be a teacher, he needs to be the protector, he needs to be a provider, okay? And for the teenage child, before you can try to tell them anything, you gotta build relationship, okay? Before you can try to lead somebody, you gotta build relationship with them. And one thing for me, as a father of 8, all 8 of my children are individuals. Pray for your children. And when your children get to the age that they're of adulthood, let them be grown. and let them be grown. Let them get their bumps and their bruises. And when they get their bumps and their bruises, then the lessons that you taught them as a child will come back to them.
Yep.
And then they can win.
Thank you. Venerable, was anything like that?
Yeah, I love the word that the father is not like to put pressure with the son. It's a love. You see, whatever, just let him enjoy it. Yeah. You see the feeling of happy. You see, when we feel happy, we enjoy it. Everything in our body is just like atom. The molecule in our body is peaceful. It makes settlement. But if you push him like, I am father, I have to do this to that, it will crash in our body. That's why I love the Jesus say in the Proverbs 17:22 say that a cheerful heart is a good medicine, a broken spirit sharp a person's strength. When we feel happy, you see everything is calm arrangement in our body. But if you put pressure, it will crash in our body and make make poison. You see, anger. Mark Twain said that anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than anything on which it is poured. You see, yeah, it's very nice. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We are running out of time very quickly. We have 2 final questions. So, gentlemen, if I may, I think I'm going to answer them.
Work them out.
We have 2 final questions. The questions are, how do you define masculinity? And can you be spiritual without going to a church? I brought you gentlemen here today because I wanted to learn. I wanted to hear your thoughts, your perspectives, your journeys, where you once were, where you are now. And I really appreciate it. I'm an atheist. I have been my entire life. I've been reading books on spirituality. I don't know the answers. So, trying to find them. So one thing I can say is that I feel very spiritual today. Being in community with you gentlemen, I feel it. I feel it. I don't go to church. I've been to church. I've been to my dad's church a bunch. But yeah. And then how do you define masculinity? I think it's very clear today that we all have different opinions of masculinity. We've all had different journeys. We've all had different teachings, learnings, relearnings. Something that I'm learning every day and something I'm relearning every day. We get asked that question a lot at Brotherhood of Strength, at Center for Hope and Healing, anywhere, really. I get that asked a lot. I wear a healthy masculinity mask. The answer is there's no definition. What is masculinity? What is toxic masculinity? What is healthy masculinity? It's growing. It's not defined by a simple sentence. It's by our stories, by our journey. And I welcome you gentlemen to join me in Brotherhood of Strength. I welcome anyone to. Because I want to continue this conversation. I want to keep on learning. We are running out of time. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming. I want to thank this audience. I want to thank LTC for putting on the show. Great Sam for doing our camera works, and with Nick and Ivy.
Thank you both for hosting.
And yeah, that is the end of our March men's series. Keep tuned. I have a special little drop next Thursday on our social media that I think will fit in with the themes that we've gone over so far. So let's give one final round of applause to our gentlemen here. Thank you so much for being here. And with that, I gotta run, so I'm gonna close the stream. Have a wonderful night.